just socially what they need.
Yeah.
It's
My
tough
son,
on everybody.
my 6-year-old last night was talking about the disparity.
Yeah, I mean, when it's going to be up to 12 weeks because our expert.
I think we can do it part way and do better, and not do it where we throw everything off and run down the street, cars or whatever people are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
To figure it out.
Yeah, well,
All right.
individual decisions that.
Did Andrea do her test? We did. Okay, so she's good? Great.
Yeah, hi. You're right. Hi.
Great. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, yeah. Sorry, I'm really behind on emails. I saw you wanted us to log in early.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
just
here.
sent, I mean, we're going to start pretty soon in a second now, but I just sent an email that we got, but I will read it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of photos. Chair Clark has
I've
you
looked
can
at
open
them.
their email, could see the photos, but
Yeah, I've just looked at them all and I've looked at the letter.
okay,
Yep.
great, Kathy.
And I'm catching up on all that too. I see them all coming in now.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, so Nicole, when you're ready, let me know, and then I will say okay, and then I will start the broadcast, and then you can go.
I'm ready. Everyone's ready.
Let me make sure we got everybody here. Let's see. Jacob, are you back? Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
I think we're frozen. Oh, we were frozen for a second. Yeah,
I think we're
saw
okay
that.
now. All right, I'm going to turn my webcam off and my microphone off, and then tell me you're ready to go, and I will start the broadcast.
I'm ready to go.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for June 24th, 2020. May we please have roll call? Rose?
Yeah, sorry, it takes a second. Chair Clark,
Here.
Vice Chair Miguel,
Here.
Commissioner Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Lesnar Buxton,
Bill.
Commissioner Longstreet,
Here.
Commissioner Martinez Cohen,
Here.
Commissioner Perry.
Present.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to the agenda? At this time, I'd like to announce that our business manager, Nicole Parmalee, will be stepping in for Jill this week as Jill's away from the office. So welcome, Ms. Parmalee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Clark and Commissioners. No, we do not have any changes to the agenda.
Okay, and do we have any written communications?
We do not.
Okay, so we've come to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. I think Rose is going to explain how to make that public comment.
Oh my goodness, I'm very sorry. Okay. For those who wish to speak during public comment, please use the raise your hand functionality in the GoToWebinar control panel. We are currently displaying a graphics showing where that is located. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. For those who wish to speak on an agenda item later in the meeting, please raise your hand when the item is under discussion. Okay, let me see.
Do we have any? You're looking for raised hands?
I am looking for raised hands. I do not see any raised hands for general public comment.
I think I'm going to step in real briefly and make my own public comment on something that's not on our agenda item. I just want to ask people who are using our parks and recreation facilities to please follow the statewide mandate to wear masks and protect everybody around you. Thank you. If there's no more public comment, I will move on to Commissioner Committee assignment reports. And I will start with Commissioner Perry.
Good afternoon. The Arts and Crafts Commission has not met, so I'd have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Has there been a talk about whether they'll be starting go-to or virtual meetings, to your knowledge?
I've not heard anything to that effect. As it relates to arts and crafts, I did participate in the De La Guerra planning meeting last week. And then I will let Chair Longstreet bring us all current.
Wonderful, thank you. Commissioner Longstreet?
Yes, I attended the De La Guerra Plaza Visioning Committee, and we're making really good progress. We received an early conceptual drawing on the possibilities in De La Guerra Plaza. The group came to consensus on some items in that we really do not want to see parking on De La Guerra Street or in the plaza, but open for deliveries only. It would a level surface, no lawn surface, looking at how to incorporate art into the pavement as we have down at the waterfront, and possibly a water feature of some sort. There is a very interesting proposal of an arcade structure on the side of City Hall that would enclose the area a little bit more, give it a little more enclosed feeling. And we also discussed the need for restrooms in the area. So the committee is working very well together. We're amazingly all on the same page and where we want to see it go. And there's a good consensus to keep De La Guerra, the Adobe, make sure that's featured heavily, the historic aspects of the plaza. So it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lexner Buxton.
The youth council has not met so far since March. We'll be meeting again Monday.
Thank you. Commissioner Martinez Cohen.
The Creeks Commission Advisory Committee has not met, and I don't know if they are planning to do the virtual meetings. I have not received any communication on that quite yet.
Okay, thank you. Is Commissioner Baker here? I didn't hear.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hi, welcome.
Do you want me to talk about golf?
Yes, please.
All right. So the Golf Advisory Committee did meet. We met via Zoom for the first time. We missed our April meeting, but we had just met, and things are back up and running at the golf course. And the numbers in January and February were pretty high, and they closed March 20th. But having opened back up again, they got great numbers. Many people getting out on the course, including myself. So they've just been taking great care of it with the skeleton crew, and props to them for doing that. So
great, wonderful, thank you. And Vice Chair McGill. I think you maybe, do you want to unmute? Are you muted?
I am. Oh, thank you. The Park Foundation did not formally meet. However, we did get a special tour of the Cabrillo Pavilion before the fences came down. And I just want to give a kudos and a shout out to everybody involved in that renovation. It's just spectacular. It's beautiful, really sensitively done with just a lot of nods back to historic features and actual historic features. And it's just going to be a great asset for the community. And I also attended the budget meeting last week and spoke on behalf of the commission and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. I too attended the tour of the bathhouse, and I was impressed with the quality of the work and the legacy that's going to be for our community. I also attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, which was online. It was a go-to meeting, and then visited every tree that we'll be talking about later in the agenda, like all the commissioners did. And that brings us to commission and staff communications. Ms. Parmalee, do we have anything?
Chair Clark and commissioners, no, we do not.
Okay, great. And ceremonial items, do we have any employee recognition and service award pins?
Yes, we do. We have one service award for Alvaro Garcia, who's been with the department for 5 years. And Alvaro is a grounds maintenance crew leader in the Parks Division. He's assigned to the beachfront and the downtown corridor parks and facilities. He oversees a crew of about 6 or 7 employees, and in the words of his supervisor, he's very attentive and helpful in everything that he does. And he not only works in his assigned areas, but he's happy to help out all of the other sections in the division when needed. And overall, he's just a great asset to the department and a very hard worker. He's dependable and loyal, and the Parks Division is very lucky to have him. So congratulations to Al on this achievement, and we thank him for his service.
Thank you. Do you think in the future when we give people service awards in our meetings, we could have a picture of them? Because I'd love to be able to put names to faces, all the faces I see in the parks and facilities.
Chair Clark and commissioners, that is a great idea, and I will bring that and see if we can do that for the future.
Great, thank you so much. With that, we've come to the minutes. I assume we've all had a chance to read them. And I was wondering if anyone would like to make a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you.
I'll second.
And that second was coming from?
Kathy Miguel.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Miguel. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. With that, I would like to welcome Mr. Nathan Slack to present our Street Tree Advisory Committee items.
Good afternoon, Chair Clark and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove. I'll wait till the slide queues up. We can advance. Thank you. So the first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove 18 trees on 3 streets. Those streets are West Mission, San Pasqual, and a section of West Micheltorena Street. The project is the West Side Bike Boulevard Gap Closure Project. And these requests for street tree removals is to facilitate the installation of several new bike lane components on the west side. We've worked pretty extensively with public works staff, specifically transportation staff, to identify several replant locations if the commission chooses to approve the proposed removals. There's a removal replacement ratio of 2 to 1. We've identified close to 46 locations within the project footprint where we're proposing to replace trees. There's been a lot of feedback from the community, specifically of the proposed removals on Mission Street. I just wanted to really quickly run through that there will be 4 jacarandas proposed for removal on Mission Street, 1 additional Victorian box for a total of 5 trees on Mission Street. There's 2 New Zealand Christmas trees proposed for removal on San Pasquale. And then on West Micheltorena Street, there are 6 firewheel trees, 3 crepe myrtles, 1 southern magnolia, and then also a bottle tree proposed for removal. Given the large scale of this project and that there's significant public improvements, we've asked Jessica Grant, the transportation planner from the Public Works, to come and give a broad presentation on the full scope of the project, so the commission's aware of the proposed bike plan improvements and why they're requesting these removals to take place.
Before we move to Jessica, can you clarify what you said? When you said a 2-to-1 replacement, does that mean 2 trees in for every 1 out?
Chair Clark and Commissioners, that's correct. Given some of the proposed improvements, we have limited capacity to put a tree back in, say, every specific location where a tree will be removed. But in the case of Mission Street, there's a proposal to put 7 new trees in the new parkway that's proposed as part of the bike lane improvements. And then within the whole project footprint, we've identified 46 possible locations, several of which occur on West Micheltorena that actually has the most significant impact in terms of total canopy loss from a tree loss perspective. And then there's some. Are you getting feedback? I'm getting feedback. Weird.
No, I'm not.
No? Okay, sorry. So, and Jessica can probably speak to this a little bit. We've worked to kind of create these unique opportunities for some tree placement within some of these bike path elements that will serve as like an additional traffic calming thing that's been kind of a unique feature, something new, I think, especially from the forestry perspective, to have large areas where we can grow large new trees. I'm going to mute myself while she presents.
Welcome, Ms. Grant. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Clark and Commissioners. I'm Jessica Grant, Supervising Transportation Planner with the Public Works Department. Yes, this project will provide cyclists with 2 low-stress bicycle boulevards along San Andres and Gillespie Streets, and also provide a downtown connection from the west side through downtown, through Micheltorena and Sola Streets. Next slide. I did want to provide just a little bit of background for this project. The project originated from the bicycle master planning effort in 2016, which was robust community outreach. What we heard from the west side residents was to have stronger bike connections, not only in the west side, but also from west side to downtown. We received a $4.4 million grant for the project. As we began to analyze the project in more detail, looking at collision data, traffic patterns, and just starting to refine the scope. We were also in the process during 2019 where we had a big effort in the west side and lower west neighborhoods to better understand various transportation related concerns as people walk, bike, and drive in the neighborhood. Based upon the workshops and the community feedback we received from the workshops and surveys and all of that, the plan was formed. This particular plan was vetted through the Transportation Circulation Committee and the Neighborhood Advisory Council. City Council approved this plan in March of 2020. And with that, we had a defined scope for the project, and which was also approved by the grant funding agency, the California Transportation Commission. That all said, that then begins the process where we can actually now bring the project through our city processes, and that's why we're here today at the Parks and Rec Commission is one of the steps in the process for review of this project. And today we're here just for the tree removal. We will be moving forward in the next couple of months through the design review boards, the Architecture Board of Review and Historic Landmarks Commission on the project's design. Next slide. Just a little bit of background. The color diagram with it says that's titled 5-year collisions. That's just a planning tool that we use. It's a heat map identifying collisions that are happening in the West Side neighborhood. San Andres was not an ideal route for all ages and abilities for cyclists. And that's why we were looking at a bicycle boulevard, which is a low volume street. Think 1,500 vehicles or less on the street, as an alternative route to San Andres to get through the neighborhood, and then also then across to downtown. Originally, in our bicycle master plan, we had identified Chino Street as being the identified street for the bicycle boulevard. After further analysis and looking at all the dominant traffic patterns through the west side, Chino became not an ideal street because we would have had to have diverted a lot of vehicles from that street onto other neighboring streets. Next slide. So what we landed on with the community was to have two connections through the west side on Gillespie and San Pasqual streets. On Gillespie, that one is really the core neighborhood connection street. This is an ideal street because it connects Harding Elementary, Santa Barbara Community Academy, and La Cumbre Junior High School. And then San Pasqual Street is also another safe routes to school identified street. And it also serves for a lot of bike commuters coming through the west side to get to downtown as a cut through, whereas Gillespie Street might not be as ideal for those commuting to cut through the west side into downtown. So along this 3-mile stretch within the west side and then into downtown, there are two identified locations where we do need to have tree removal. Next slide. So at the along Mission Street, right at the intersection of Modoc and Mission and San Pasqual, that is a really difficult intersection that we heard from the community, whether you're driving, biking, or walking. In particular for cyclists of all ages and abilities, the left turn movement from San Pasqual Street on the Mission is very difficult maneuver. For this particular section of the bike path, the only solution was to do a multi-use path connection here to get families coming from San Pasqual can hop onto the multi-use path and then connect to Modoc. And of course, this does require some tree removal, 4 jacarandas and an additional tree, and then a couple trees on San Pasqual to ensure adequate sight lines. In the sort of dotted line area, that will become the new parkway and new opportunities for parkway plantings. Next slide. The other location where we have identified tree removal is just east of the intersection of San Andres and Micheltorena Street. At this location, we'll be bringing up the bike lanes to the sidewalk level. And so the trees in the tree walls will need to be removed to have the higher level of facility there and to help with, again, to protect sight lines. As Nathan mentioned in the next slide, the purple identifies the project route. And along this route, we have already identified, working with Nathan, 46 locations along this path, mainly along Micheltorena and Mission Streets to plant new trees. And we're continuing to work with Nathan on even more planting locations. The other lines that you see here are proposed either existing bicycle infrastructure or bicycle infrastructure coming online soon as part of to execute the vision of the bicycle master plan, and communities needs to have really strong east-west connections from neighborhoods into downtown and across to other neighborhoods. With that, I conclude my presentation. Oh, I think I had one more slide. There was just, again, after Parks and Rec is to now move into the design with the design review boards, and outreach will continue, is a continual process from design through construction. Construction is anticipated in 2021.
Thank you, Jessica. So just to loop back, Chair Clark and Commissioners, again, the request from Public Works is to remove these 18 trees that we've identified. So that concludes the presentation for this item.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Flack or Ms. Grant at this time? Okay, if there are no commissioners who have questions, I think it's a good time to start our public comment process. I think there might be a number of people here to speak to this item.
Chair Clark, yes, I see one raised hand. Anyone who wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand on the GoToWebinar control panel. When I call on you, please unmute yourself and then speak for a maximum of 2 minutes. Once you have finished, if there are no questions from the commission, you will be muted. And 1 second, I am sorry. Okay, we have Melissa Cunningham would like to speak.
Welcome, Melissa. Thank you for attending virtually. Please speak.
Hi, good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Melissa Cunningham, Executive Director of the Coalition for Sustainable Transportation, COAST. And I'm here today to support the West Side Bike Boulevard Gap Closure Project that you just heard about. This project is of great importance to provide connections between a number of schools as well as the West Side neighborhoods to the Central Business District. COAST has been very involved in this project from the beginning. During a number of outreach sessions with communities on the West Side, it became very clear that a designated multi-use path is needed on Mission Street to connect Modoc Road to the Bike Boulevard that will be on San Pasqual Street. This section has a high traffic volume, and currently cars, bikes, and pedestrians do not travel safely together. With Vision Zero in mind, which the city adopted officially in 2018, our goal is to eliminate traffic fatalities, focusing on dangerous locations where pedestrians and cyclists are most vulnerable. One of the ways we do this is with education via our Safe Routes to School program, teaching kids and families how to get to and from school safely on a bike or by walking. We cannot accomplish this without the safe connections that the new path on Mission will create. In addition, the improvements to Micheltorena Street, providing connections between Gillespie Bike Boulevard to Sola Street, is another essential safe route to school, as well as the route to downtown business district. Are you getting my echoes with this?
No.
Yes,
Okay,
we are.
sorry.
I am hearing echoes. So.
Okay.
And
I'll continue. I'm almost done. Many people have always, and many more now, have been biking or walking to work. Cars are expensive to maintain, and the benefits of fresh air have been realized now more than ever. We need these safe routes, not only for kids to walk and ride to school, but for families to go on outings and to get to and from work without a car. COAST is in full support of the Bike Boulevard project and is pleased that even though it will require the removal of some trees, triple the amount will be planted in place of the ones removed. We will have cleaner air due to the addition of so many trees, and also due to more people choosing not to drive and instead to safely walk or bike to their destination. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. I appreciate you speaking to this. Do any of the commissioners have comments to make? Maybe I'll for delay. Vice Chair Miguel.
Yeah, I just wanted, if this is more for absolute clarity, because when you look at the comments that we've received, the greatest energy is around those jacarandas on Mission Street. I really didn't see, other than general comments about the bike project itself in totality, I didn't see other trees being, I guess, challenged, it'll be the word I'll use. So is there any possibility of doing the project and not removing those specific trees on Mission Street?
Chair Clark and Commissioner McGill, I think I'll defer to Jessica to speak to the implementation of that bike lane element there on Mission. Go ahead, Jessica.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commissioner McGill. For this particular section, we felt very strongly that there be an off-street path for cyclists at this one connection. And in order to do that, we do require the removal of those jacaranda trees. There are tree planting opportunities in that section as we rebuild the new parkway. But it is clear in this area with the mix of users with pedestrians and cyclists and vehicles that to have an all age and ability route is to separate the cyclists from vehicles at this one particular section.
Sure, I know the intersection well. I'm on it constantly on foot, so I understand the issues. A follow-up question, you talk about having well, I guess it's a 2-for-1 replacement issue, or is it a 3-for-1? But you talk about having a number of locations and the possibility to move trees or do new jacaranda plantings just a few feet, basically, from the existing trees. When would you foresee finalizing the new tree locations in general and ensuring that they're fully funded?
So, Chair Clark and Commissioner McGill, for this, within the project scope, it does allow for funding for these new tree plantings. And I apologize, what was the second part?
Finalizing locations.
So finalizing locations, we're currently doing that right now with all the layouts, and we have been working with Nathan Slack to identify not only locations along the project routes, but if there's anything near in the vicinity of the project routes too, that could benefit from an additional street tree location.
And is there any community involvement in the new locations?
Chair Clark and Commissioner McGill, we've not engaged the community yet on replacements. Public Works has provided us data in regards to like the new parkway that's going to be on Mission. So we've looked at some of the bike lane improvements as components and evaluated the feasibility of replacements within those specific areas. And then in addition to that, we identified existing vacancies near the project footprint to plant new trees to offset the loss of the proposed 18 for removal. And then specifically for Mission Street, which has been kind of a hot topic, I think, for the community there, there's the 4 jacarandas proposed and then the Victorian box. And it looks like based on preliminary measurements that we will be able to install 7 new trees in that new parkway that's proposed for construction there along Mission.
Thank you.
And those would be reflected on the final locations as we move forward with the design review boards. And then we're working with Nathan on the species and size of trees to plant in those locations.
Great, thanks.
Commissioner Longstreet, did you have some comments?
A question. So on Mission Street, you have a Class 1 bikeway and a bike boulevard. Is that correct, the way I'm looking at the map?
Chair Clark and Commissioner Longstreet, it is only a class 1 connection at that one spot. And then it will be connecting to the bicycle boulevard on San Pasqual.
So the yellow line on Mission, where it says Bike Boulevard, and the orange part that says Class 1, they're both for that block on Mission Street, right?
Yes, the class 1, that is the class 1 path at that location.
Okay, thank you.
So we received a lot of emails on this particular project. And I know a lot of us, we don't want to see those trees go. We love trees. We know the importance of trees. And I think we're advocates for trees in this community, but we need to look at the greatest good, the greatest benefit to our community, and we need to keep our children and our neighbors safe. And also, if there were some comments on Ed Hat where people felt like the bicyclists are, taking over our city and bullying and strong-arming people into bike lanes and taking away parking spaces. And what we need to remember is that the bicycle it's a tool for social equity. Urban cycling can reduce costs for a household by up to 50%. People need to have access to safe ways to get around this town. And I think the greatest good for the community is this bikeway. And we're sorry to see the trees go, but I think there's a net of 28 trees proposed. If there's 46 proposed replacements and 18 coming out. So we're not losing any trees here, and we're gaining great community benefit. Those are my 2 cents. And if there is no other comments, Commissioner Longstreet. Unmute yourself. Unmute.
I would agree with what you say, except for we are losing canopy. So we do have to be realistic about that. The new trees will take a while. I think the issues that we see, as one who lives in the Lower West Side, I see both sides of it. When Rancheria went in, the parking is tight here. Our neighborhood does not get along because of parking. It is truly a social problem. So we're in a really flux period with this, and I think we have to be aware of it. But I also have grandchildren that ride with their father out to San Marcos from the Lower West Side and do need a safe way to get there. I had my own children when they were were young people, rode to La Cumbre Junior High. So I do see both sides of it. And I think we have to move forward, as uncomfortable as it can be. And then we have to be realistic about some of the effects of it down the road, because I think it's always great when we all say things. But when you're the one that lives in the house that lost the parking, people get upset. So I do acknowledge the strong feelings on both sides of this. But I will support moving forward with it and the replanting.
Would anyone care to make a motion?
Chair Clark,
Yes.
I'm sorry, we have another person that raised their hand to speak
Oh, okay.
from the public.
All right.
Do we have a Karen Luckett, if you would?
Welcome, Karen.
Oh, hi. I'm just wondering, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm just wondering, I really hate to see the loss of these trees and for the canopy, for the beauty. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful exits to get off the freeway that I can think of in the city. Isn't there any way to utilize the sidewalks and eliminate one side of the street as walking and use that as an alternative bike path versus chopping down trees? I'm just wondering if there's any alternative solutions to the trees that have been discussed.
Did you just join the meeting?
That's all.
Okay. So I think perhaps that speaker joined the meeting a little bit tardy because we did cover those items, and I'm not quite sure how to proceed because we've already had our presentations and question and answer session. Commissioner Longstreet?
Well, I would make a motion. I think there is community benefit for the removal of the trees in item 3A1 on Mission Street in Micheltorena.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'm happy to second that motion.
I was just going to maybe add something to it. Is it too late?
We would have to not approve that motion and make another motion.
Oh, well, we could amend it if it was something that.
Okay.
Well, all I was going to do is just amend to say that no removals to occur until the project is fully approved and all replacement locations are funded and approved.
Okay.
I would say until the plan is approved, fully approved. I don't know about all of the replacement locations. That might take a little while. But contingent that, what is it, 40, how many, 46 trees be, 46, that there be 46 replacement trees in the area. That sound okay?
That sounds okay. Ms. Navarez, were you able to get all that? Or repeat it coherently?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. That brings us to our next Street Tree Advisory Committee item, the 700 and 800 blocks of Chapala Street.
Chair Clark and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove 8 trees total, 7 king palms and 1 jacaranda from the 700 to 800 blocks of Chapala Street along the portion of Paseo Nuevo. The applicant's proposing the removal of these trees to make pretty significant sort of public-private improvements along the sidewalk there. The sidewalks will be widened pretty significantly. New trees are proposed for installation. Those will be pushed out to the edge of the sidewalk, consistent with normal tree planting, tree well design guidelines and standards. There's going to be a stormwater element as well, where street stormwater is going to be treated underneath the expanded sidewalk through the use of storm tech cell stormwater treatment devices. The committee reviewed the application, reviewed the trees on site, and after review made a recommendation to approve the proposed removal of all 8 trees. We did look at a new proposed landscape plan that shows the planting of 5 jacarandas and 3 king palms. The applicant expressed an interest in retaining the 3 existing king palms on site and transplanting them back into the new locations, which seemed feasible, and the committee was generally supportive of that. They did make a comment that if those trees were not successful during the replanting and reestablishment period, that they be replaced with a minimum brown trunk height of 15 feet of a king palm, which is sort of an industry standard terminology. Essentially, it's a 15+ foot tall replacement palm tree. So the recommendation to approve, again, the 8 trees, understanding that 5 new jacarandas and 3 of the existing king palms will be planted and transplanted back into the new tree wells once the sidewalk expansion project has been completed.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Slack? Vice Chair Miguel?
Yeah, just for clarification, did they recommend that we make the replacement of the king palms a condition of the approval in the event that they aren't successfully transplanted? And is that something that makes sense for us to do?
Chair Clark and Commissioner McGill, it was a comment, but I think it would be viewed favorably if it was a condition of approval by the commission. So the applicant, again, they expressed an interest and a desire in saving the existing king palms. And I think both the committee and staff felt that it should be very successful, that those trees should be able to be removed and replaced, or transplanted would be a better way to put it, with a high success rate. So it probably wasn't likely. And I think that's why the committee felt the need to make a comment instead of an actual condition for the recommendation.
Okay. Commissioner Longstreet?
I'm really happy to see more jacarandas in that area to soften it and make it a lot more pedestrian friendly. So that area, the palm trees just don't offer that same feeling when you walk down the street. So I'm very supportive of this, and I would, if we're ready, make a motion.
Please.
I move that we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for the 700 and 800 blocks of Chapala, removing 7 king palms to be retained, or is it just the 3 palms retained? Well, to retain the palms where possible, and and the jacaranda, and to replant with 5 jacarandas and 3 king palms. If the transplanting is not successful, that they be replaced with minimum brown trunk height of 15 feet.
I'm happy to second that.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, I seconded.
Right, I got your second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Chair Clark and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for the review is the request to remove a Mexican fan palm. It's a street tree located in the parkway in front of 1258 San Miguel Avenue. The applicant's requesting the removal of the fan palm to facilitate the construction of a new driveway. They're in the process of getting approval to build an ADU on site. And given constraints within the parcel, they have to relocate driving or the driveway and parking location to in the photo, the left side of the home. And in doing so, they need to install a new driveway apron to get access to the new proposed driveway. And the larger of the 2 palms in the image lies directly within that footprint. The committee reviewed the application, the tree on site, and made a recommendation to approve the removal with the condition that the applicant work with the city arborist to find a suitable location for a new street tree within the project vicinity. I think when we viewed this specific request and application, and we looked kind of critically at the existing parkway and when you look at the installation of the new driveway apron, it was really difficult to imagine suitable functional space for a new tree to be replaced in that specific location, which was why the condition was made to find as close and as suitable of a location as possible to offset the loss of the existing tree.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Slack. Have any questions? Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment? Ms. Navarez?
Chair Clark, I do not see any raised hands.
Okay, great. Vice Chair Miguel,
I was just ready to make a motion.
please.
I would move that we approve the recommendation to conditionally approve the removal of the Mexican fan palm on the condition that the applicant works with the city arborist to find a location for replacement street tree. And I would also add a condition that the ADU get approval.
I
It hasn't
second
been
that.
submitted. It hasn't been submitted yet.
I heard a second. Is there any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Thank you.
Chair Clark, I did not recognize who made the second.
That was Corey,
Thank you
Commissioner
very
Baker.
much.
Chair Clark and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove 2 brush cherries located within the front setback at 711 Spring Street. On the application, the applicant listed several reasons why they were requesting removal of these 2 brush cherries. They likely were planted as a hedge many, many years ago and allowed to develop into the existing trees that we see now. They identified that they've had trouble in the past with broken limbs, debris issues, generally just poorly maintained and aesthetically unappealing. The committee reviewed the application, viewed the trees on site, and after discussion, made the recommendation to approve the removal of the 2 existing brush cherries from the front setback at 711 Spring Street with the condition that the applicant plant a replacement tree that can achieve a minimum of 25 feet in height at maturity. Additionally, the committee determined that the commission could make the finding that the principles of good forest management will be best served by the proposed removals.
Thank you. I had a question about these particular trees. Do they meet the technical definition of a tree? I thought a tree had a single trunk, and these, when I drove by in the picture, have multiple trunks. They don't look quite like trees.
Chair Clark and Commissioners, technically speaking, they do. There's lots of examples around town. On Arriaga by Alice Keck Park, where we have like large, predominantly single-stemmed species. What we're seeing here is probably, again, potentially large woody plants, trees that were installed and maintained as a hedge, decades ago. And as a result of consistent pruning and height manipulation, they develop multiple stems really low. And then they've been allowed to grow and develop. So it biologically and by definition absolutely satisfies as a tree and is considered a large, predominantly single stem, long-lived woody plant. So it does kind of check all those boxes. And I think again, there's lots of examples throughout town where they look, like very functional, nice trees.
Okay. Thanks. Are there any more questions for Mr. Slack? Or would anyone like to make a motion? Okay. I will make a motion to agree with the Street Trees Advisory Committee's recommendation that we approve removal of the 2 brush cherries at 711 Spring Street on the condition the applicant plants a replacement tree that can achieve 25 feet in height. Commissioner Longstreet?
I will second that. I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved.
Chair Clark and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request for the removal of a Brazilian pepper tree located within the front setback of 3979 La Colina Road. On the application, the applicant listed a few different reasons for requesting the removal. The most significant was sightline issues exiting the adjacent driveway to the property located in the left of the photograph. It is a neighboring parcel. Also noted were maintenance issues, consistent blocking of the street sign there for the crosswalk going across the street to the school, and just difficulty maintaining the tree comprehensively. And then there was reference to it being listed as a invasive species, even though it's commonly planted and occurs throughout the community. The committee reviewed the application, reviewed the tree on site, and after discussion, made a recommendation to support the removal of the Brazilian pepper tree located within the front setback, with the condition that a replacement tree be planted back within the front setback that can reach a minimum height of 35 feet at maturity. During the review, the committee determined that the commission could make the findings that both principles of good forest management will be best served by the proposed removal, and that regard for safety of persons or property also dictates the removal.
Are there any questions? Mr. Slack? Is there any members of the public who would like to speak to this item?
Chair Clark, there are no raised hands. I believe you did receive a letter that I forwarded yesterday, email, but other than that, they are not here at the meeting.
Vice Chair Miguel?
Yeah, I'm just ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Unless there's no, yeah. So I will move that we approve the recommendation to conditionally approve removal of the Brazilian pepper on the condition that a replacement tree that can achieve a minimum height of 35 feet at maturity be planted within the front setback, and under the true principles of good forest management and safety of persons and property.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Phoebe.
Thanks, Phoebe. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Mr. Slack, that brings us to 1616 Hillcrest.
Chair Clark and Commissioners, the next item for review is a request to remove a coast live oak from the front setback at 1616 Hillcrest Road. The applicant listed several reasons for requesting the removal. Decline was a prominent characteristic noted on the application in regards to requesting the removal of this tree. They also felt that the decline and the tree has a pronounced lean towards the property, so they felt that there was a safety issue given the combination of the exhibited decline and vigor, and then also just a general lean of the oak tree. The committee reviewed the application, reviewed the tree on site. After some discussion, felt that lots of the new growth that's occurring throughout the canopy was a positive growth response, and that if the tree, received some deep watering and was maintained culturally a little bit better, that there was actually a fair chance that the tree could improve in vigor. And at this time didn't satisfy any of the findings for removal. So the committee made a recommendation to deny the request to remove the coast live oak at 1616 Hillcrest Road.
Are there any questions for Mr. Slack? Vice Chair Miguel?
Yeah, just one. I mean, I went up there and the road's about as wide as my foot, so I didn't really feel like I could park and get out and do a lot of stomping around. But in looking at the trees, I wasn't sure I could tell a huge difference between the different specimens. I mean, is this in fundamentally worse shape than the other trees in the property?
Chair Clark and Commissioner Miguel, I think that in terms of like performance and vigor, it's probably not doing as well as some of the other trees. When I met on site with the applicant several weeks back, they had apparently during that windstorm that we had lost several limbs on a few of the other trees. And I think that may have added to the appearance that they weren't performing that well either. I think your observations are also fairly accurate in that several of the other trees probably aren't the healthiest specimens, and that this one's not terribly different. And again, I think that the committee felt that it exhibited lots of positive growth response, and at this time didn't warrant removal. They were completely willing to re-review this specific request, noting, as they often do, that an arborist report, a very objective arborist report, identifying if there really are structural issues or if there really are no ways that the cultural component can be improved to increase the vigor in the tree, that they'd be happy to re-review it in the future as well.
Would you mind defining a cultural improvement?
Chair Clark and commissioners, yeah, sorry. So when I say that, it's things like mulching, maybe deep watering. We're kind of talking about improvements to the soil, which have a direct impact on the root system. We increase available moisture, we increase oxygen, we increase organic matter. That leads to increased microbial activity, which all has a really positive impact on the tree's ability to uptake water and nutrients. So it's sort of a generic term for improving, the site soil and the tree's general health, below ground.
Thank you. Mr. Longstreet.
Yeah, when I went up there, and I will agree with Commissioner McGill, it's a tough little street there. I counted 7 oaks in their front yard. So they do have quite a good planting. It's a beautiful area. I would concur that we should do this without prejudice, so that they can come back if it becomes apparent they need to do this. I think it's obvious that they do care for their oaks, that they have a lovely yard full of them. So I'd be ready to make a motion if I would move that we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee to deny the removal at 1616 Hillcrest without prejudice. Yeah.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
I'm going to oppose.
Noted. So moved. Brings us to 536 Bath Street.
Chair Clark and commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is the request to remove an Italian stone pine located within the front setback at 536 Bath Street. On the application, the resident listed multiple reasons for removal. Prominent one was the damage to the retaining wall or the property line wall. There was reference to damage to the adjacent property owner's property, branch failures, and maintenance concerns generally, as well as shading out a street tree on the side street there. I believe that's Coda. The committee reviewed the application, reviewed the tree on site. After discussion, made the recommendation to deny the request for removal of the stone pine, the Italian stone pine, within the front setback 536 Bass Street, noting that at the present time, they could not make any findings for removal.
Are there questions for Mr. Slack at this time? Vice Chair Miguel?
Yeah, I walked down and went by there and wondered how hard it would be to climb up and crawl into that hammock that's way up there.
Yeah.
But the question I had, I mean, the cracks in the wall are, yeah, they're apparent, they're real, they're there. But I also observed that I didn't see anything in the sidewalk or the driveway that looked actually quite level, and it didn't look like a sidewalk that had undergone multiple repairs. And I don't know if that's true or not, maybe that's something you can confirm, but my question was, if it's the roots that are causing the cracks in the walls, would they do that and not cause any upheaval in the driveways and the sidewalks?
Chair Clark and Commissioner Miguel, when we're talking trees, I'd say almost anything's possible. It's certainly reasonable. The one thing I didn't mention during the initial review is that there was the committee felt that some of that wall damage could actually be associated with the weeping fig that's kind of tucked in the corner. Pretty easy to miss it when you get near that large stone pine, just because of the scale of the pine tree. It could easily be a combination of both of those, and it would be certainly more than reasonable that it was causing enough pressure to sort of maybe cause some displacements in that wall. I know from talking to engineers about other walls in Southern California, especially, they're not built, extremely strong with like rebar and heavy footings and stuff like that. So they do lend themselves to easy displacement. And our earth moves quite a bit anyway. We had a rolling earthquake today, and that can have pretty significant impacts to structures like this as well. But I would say, without doing like extreme like exploratory work, that it's more than reasonable to say that root system could cause enough pressure to cause the displacement that's visible in that wall, and not cause this, damage to surrounding hardscapes.
Thank
you.
Commissioner Clark, may I?
Yes, Commissioner Perry, you have a question for Mr. Slack?
Mr. Slack, isn't this the same species that's on East Anapamu Street?
Chair Clark and Commissioner Perry, you are correct.
So haven't they caused a ton of damage, and aren't we looking at the same type of damage at this location in the future?
Chair Clark and Commissioner Perry, it's difficult to say. This is a pretty large stone pine. One thing that we tend to see, I feel like, with stone pines in Santa Barbara is the closer they are to the coast, they kind of have a different sort of appearance and habit. This is no doubt subject to some sort of tunneling, so it gets a lot more like coastal pressure than Anapamu, even though it's hard to imagine them being tremendously different. They are sort of like in their own little mini microclimates. This tree is super, super old. And no doubt that it potentially has caused some damage. We wouldn't expect it to get, massively larger. I think we've seen lots of growth, and while it will continue to grow, I don't know that we're gonna. You can't expect its trunk to get like double the size anymore. The root system will probably continue to like develop, and you'll see secondary growth or like increase in diameter of some roots. But I, in terms of that tree eventually looking like something like one of the stone pines on Anapamu, I'd say it's highly, highly unlikely.
Thank you.
Mr. Slack, I see that one of Ms. Wheatley, she is actually the applicant. One of her concerns is falling limbs, hurting somebody. I know the Street Tree Advisory Committee looked at the tree and they thought it was a premature request for removal, but the tree had a lot of life and health left in it yet. Is there any validity to, is there any more concern over this tree than the rest of the trees in our city with limbs dropping and hurting people? Have we seen the stone pines and other parts of town drop limbs and cause loss of life or property damage?
Chair Clark and commissioners, I think when you look at this tree, in general, you know, all trees can lose limbs or tree parts. I think this lends itself to that probably being less of a concern. You know, most of the branches are pretty slender, small in diameter. Not lots of overextension, and really, when I say overextension, I mean like super long limbs that have poor taper, things that lend themselves to really heavy loading and being difficult for the tree to, you know, deal with like wind loading and rain and things like that. So, you know, it's realistically probability of failure, especially a large part, something that would cause damage, it would be low, I would imagine, if it was like looked at thoroughly from like a risk assessment perspective.
Mm-hmm. And I see that the applicant also said she had looked into having it pruned, but was told that this is not a good time of year to have the tree pruned. What would be a good time of year to prune something like this?
Chair Clark and commissioners, that's actually really good advice. She referenced the sap dripping. This time of year, trees are cycling pretty heavy, doing their thing. And as a natural response, the conifers just in general push, they call it like pitch, but essentially it's sap when they're wounded. So if it was pruned, you would see like an increase in sap, and nobody likes sap on their car or dripping on their shirt and stuff like that. So there's a lot of truth to that. The best time to prune a conifer is in the winter because the process slows. Another really important component of that, if you're concerned with tree health, is just the activity of the local pests. There's there's active bark beetle populations in Santa Barbara, and they vector a pretty nasty fungal pathogens, and it's a pretty nasty complex. And they're less active in the winter, and it's long been advised that pruning of conifers, if you can manage to do so, is best done in the winter months.
Okay. Vice Chair Miguel, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just to kind of relating two different decisions here, but in terms of the safety considerations, I'm just curious what you see the fundamental difference between this tree and the finding we just made on La Colina about potential public safety impacts.
Chair Clark and Commissioner McGill, just to elaborate a little further on the La Colina recommendation in terms of a finding, it was directly in relation to the tree being so close to the adjacent driveway, presenting a sightline issue when the adjacent property owners exiting their driveway. It wasn't speaking in terms of risk associated with branch failure. It was purely for the exiting of the adjacent property owners' vehicles.
Thank you.
And one last question, and I realize you're not an allergist, but is this tree, I know the applicant's neighbor was concerned about her pollen allergies being affected by this tree. Do you know whether or not this tree is more allergenic than other species, or?
Chair Clark and commissioners, it does have, quick search online shows that it has allergy. You know, it definitely produces allergens. I'd have to look into it further to determine how significant those are in terms of how much they affect people. But I mean, when you look at literature, you know, there's very few trees that don't check that allergen box, unfortunately.
Right. Okay. Good to know. Thank you. Commissioner Longstreet.
What about if we concur with the Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation to deny removal without prejudice? And if Ms. Wheatley brings back information for the Tree Advisory Committee to review that shows extensive root damage from this tree or something that cannot be repaired or accommodated, and she may reapply. So that would be my motion.
Chair Clark, we have a public speaker, and we also have, we received something that, via email that I would need to read.
Let's start with the email and then we'll move to public comment.
Okay, the email was from the applicant Rhonda Wheatley, and it is a letter. She sent a letter from her neighbor. To whom it may concern, my name is Josefina Campos. I live at 532 Bath Street. My property is next door to Rhonda Wheatley's house at 536 Bath Street. Unfortunately, I have an appointment this afternoon, so I am not able to attend the hearing regarding the removal of the stone pine tree on Rhonda's property. This tree has been a nuisance for years and it must be removed. In 2016, I had to replace my front patio, and our shared driveway also had to be replaced due to the damage caused by the roots of this tree. Last year, one of the large branches broke off of the tree onto our shared driveway and sidewalk. We were very lucky no cars were parked in the driveway and no one was walking by, as the weight of the tree alone could have killed or severely injured someone. I have allergies, which my doctor has told me is caused by tree pollen. Also, because of the location of the tree, I believe it is contributing to the damage on my roof. This type of tree belongs in a large yard where the roots do not interfere with concrete walls and foundations. I understand this may be a protected tree in Santa Barbara. Please take into consideration that the protection of our two properties and pedestrians or cars should take precedence over the protection of this tree. Please approve the permit for the removal of this tree before it causes additional personal or property damage. Thank you, Josefina Campos. And we have a speaker, Rhonda Wheatley is here. Ms. Wheatley, hold on one second. I need to change. Okay. Ms. Wheatley, you may go ahead and speak. Ms. Wheatley?
Hi. Yes, thank you. I am very concerned about the liability of branches falling. And since my neighbor already had to replace her patio and the driveway had to be replaced, I'm just at a loss to understand.
Oh, appears that we've lost her. Ms. Wheatley? Can you try again? It looks like she's speaking, but we can't hear her. Okay, Ms. Wheatley, can you try again?
I'm very concerned. I don't know where I left off, where I was unmuted, but
you can start over if you like.
I would just like to know what I need to do to have the permit approved, because I lose sleep over this. My neighbor told me that she had to have her patio redone, the driveway had to be redone. I wasn't there after the branch fell, but she was practically hysterical and very worried. She parks her car there. You know, my daughter parks her car there. People walk by. It's a very busy area. I'd be happy to donate trees. I would donate jacaranda trees. I would try to get the same type of tree and have the city plant it elsewhere. But I don't want to be left with sleepless nights worried about my foundation and my neighbor's foundation. So is there someone I can work with to do something to get this approved?
So Ms. Wheatley, this is your time to make comment. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to have dialogue about what you need to do. I think what Commissioner Longstreet was suggesting was making a motion to deny without prejudice, and let Ms. Wheatley come back with some additional information regarding the damage to her house and the tree's health. Is that where you're going, Mr. Longstreet?
That was my intent, was to allow the homeowner to come back with more information, either from an arborist or have some root exploration done. As we see right now, it's undetermined whether the root damage is the fig tree or the stone pine. It looks like it hasn't ever really been trimmed. It may need some care, but it would give her time to work with staff and the committee.
So I would second your motion to deny without prejudice the application to remove the stone pine at 536 Bath Street. My second. Is there any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, and so moved. And I would like to remind people listening that they have, trying to find the verbiage here. All decisions made by the Parks and Recreation Commission are appealable to City Council within, I believe it's 10 business days. It's not written on my yellow papers anymore. There it is. Any action of the Parks and Recreation Commission may be appealed to City Council within 10 days. Okay. Mr. Slack, I believe we're done with you. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to our director's report. Ms. Connolly?
Thank you, Chair Clark and Commissioners. So we have a few items for you today on the Director's Report. First up is an update on the fiscal year 2021 budget process. So over the past several weeks, each department across the city has held budget hearings with City Council where they presented their respective original proposed budget for the next fiscal year, as well as the required budget reductions in order to help balance the city's revenue deficits that are associated with the pandemic. And as I recall, that's about a $26 million impact between FY20 and FY21 combined. So after many long council meetings and some difficult conversations talking about what those reductions will mean for service level impacts across the city, yesterday, the City Council adopted all of the proposed budget resolutions for fiscal year 21, including the Parks and Recreation budget and the reductions that were presented to the Commission at our last meeting with you on May 13. And as a reminder, those reductions will primarily include holding certain permanent and hourly staff positions vacant, as well as reductions in subsidized recreation programming, information technology allocated costs, and also modified facility hours to offset the decline in persons available to staff those facilities. So there is still quite a bit of uncertainty about what the next fiscal year will look like in terms of revenue generation for the department as well as the city overall. So with that in mind, our staff are really focusing on creative approaches to park maintenance and program and service offerings, which we'll talk more about later in this meeting, while also minimizing expenditures so that we're supporting a conservative budget approach as we enter the next fiscal year. And finally, some of our hourly staff that support both the Parks Division in terms of park maintenance, as well as the Recreation Division with summer recreation programs, are returning to work as we continue with our phased reopening of programs and services provided while we are operating under the current health order requirements. And that leads us into our facility reopening plans. So while in recent weeks, we have focused a great deal on maintaining access to our parks and open spaces under the COVID restrictions, as well as gearing up for a summer recreation season that will look quite a bit different this year. The department also developed plans for phased facility reopenings. And while there is not yet a date for reopening city public counters, in the meantime, our workspaces are being modified to enable proper social distancing and minimize the potential to spread the virus. And that includes things like protective screens in front of the public counters, hand sanitizer at every opportunity, and the requirement for staff and the public to wear masks while or when entering any of our facilities, maintaining the proper 6 feet of distance, and not allowing people to congregate in any common spaces whenever possible. So at this time, according to county guidance, larger in-person meetings are not permitted, and we do anticipate that we will continue to do a significant portion of our business over the phone and online as the public is becoming more accustomed to these new standards. So we will keep you updated on that as things progress. And then moving along to the Santa Barbara Golf Club update. So at the last time we met with you in May, the municipal golf course was newly reopened. And as a recap, the golf course was closed following the stay-at-home order from March 20th to April 25th, so 5 weeks. And during that time, the course lost approximately $300,000 in revenue. And then after securing the needed approvals, we were able to reopen the course, and it has since been operating in compliance with rapidly changing health order guidance and the social distancing protocols. And during that time, Course Co staff, or the golf course management company staff, have worked with city staff to quickly and efficiently implement changing protocols, even while also being significantly downstaffed, and at the same time also dealing with a huge increase in demand in play. Last month in May, the course recorded nearly 7,600 paid rounds, which is a 61% increase over May 2019. And it's a course record, at least in recent history. And it's clear that some of that increased play is partially due to decreased competition, since some of the other local courses are still closed. And we'll most likely start to see that level off once those other courses reopen. However, the demand this month in June also continues to be very strong. As of mid-month this month, we are on track to once again exceed 7,000 rounds for the month. And given May and June performance, we've actually been able to make up a good portion of the revenue loss from during the closure. And while we still won't hit our budget targets for the year, it's now possible we may actually surpass last year's revenue performance, which is quite an accomplishment given the 5-week closure. And then as an update on the SBA's payroll protection program application that we mentioned had been submitted at the time of our budget presentation, we did recently receive that $197,000, which is currently being used to support payroll and related operational costs. And we're hoping, of course, that this loan will ultimately be forgiven and will provide the course with a much needed cash infusion to offset the impacts of the closure. And in general, just as far as the atmosphere out on the course, we have gotten just extremely positive feedback and overall just a lot of gratitude that we were able to open as soon as we did and as safely as we did, and that we continue to make adjustments as feasible to expand the services that are provided. So for example, just this week, Course Co installed a new easy lift touchless golf ball retrieval systems at each hole, which was a very welcome improvement over the previous systems where the ball wasn't able to go fully in the hole in order to avoid that touch point. So golfers have been loving that. Now you just use your club to pick it up, and then the ball rolls right on out and there's no touch point involved. So just a big thank you to Course Co staff who have really done an excellent job in implementing these changes while serving such an increased number of golfers who are just happy to be back out on the course and enjoying the beautiful Santa Barbara outdoors. And then lastly, we just wanted to call out a couple of upcoming items that we will be bringing before commission in the upcoming months. And that will include revisions to the special event policy and procedures, preliminary design plans for Ortega Park, options for fall recreation programs as we continue to navigate these changing public health conditions, and a status report on capital improvement projects, as well as the sea level rise adaptation plan, which will be resuming under the Community Development Department. So that's all that I have for you.
Commissioner Longstreet.
I'd just like to say thank you to all of the staff that has continued to work throughout the pandemic. Many of us have had to continue to work, and it hasn't been easy to get your job done, as well as support the public, support coworkers. And so just a big thank you to everyone. I think we're going to be doing this a while, and it's good to see some positive steps, like with the golf course, that people are able to get out and be active. And after reading the next item on our agenda, I know how much work has gone into reopening at every level. So kudos to everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Especially in light of the fact that you guys are working with reduced staff. There's some people I know are doing the jobs of 3-4 people. So I want to echo Commissioner Longstreet's gratitude. Thank you for all that you've done.
Thank you very much.
Summer camps and recreation programs.
Good evening, Chair Clark and Commissioners. Rich Hanna, Recreation Manager. It is summer, so tonight I'll be presenting a report of our 2020 summer camps and recreation programs. Before I begin, we just wrapped up about an hour ago our 3rd day of camps for the summer. And I just wanted to express how proud I am of the entire recreation division, this department, our marketing efforts, the director who never quit on the possibility of operating summer camps this summer. I think it's also important to acknowledge the work that our parks operations staff did, our park rangers, our forestry division, Santa Barbara Police Department, and our attorney's office to help us navigate the process, provide guidance, and ultimately prep the parks and beach areas where we're going to be running these programs so that they were safe and clean for staff and participants. Next slide. So every year, typically in fall, we bring a report to the commission. We talk about successes, the lessons that we've learned, the opportunities for the following year. During that presentation, we discussed these key topics. I just wanted to touch on them very briefly. The opportunity to offer summer camps and recreation programs brings youth together to have fun, gain self-confidence, and learn new skills. These activities also encourage positive and healthy activity when school is not in session, and they provide a place for youth to make new friends because we serve the greater community and we cross a lot of the school boundaries. In addition to generating over 20% of the department's revenue in only 10 weeks, summer camp programs develop future instructors and leaders for continued success of our programs. Our camps and programs offer a wide variety of activities that range from instructional to fitness to nature to technology, entrepreneurial, theater, enrichment, and in some instances, substitute for daycare. Our programs serve youth aged 3 to 17, and they're highly regarded in the community. The department has a strong reputation for delivering quality programs. They're extremely popular and highly attended. And just like in most years, except slightly different this year, our programs historically vary in length, anywhere from 1 week to 2 weeks, and in some cases, 7 or to 8 weeks. And as you'll hear further in this presentation today, we've had to adopt a hybrid model to meet the safety needs of participants and staff, and I'll cover that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So planning for summer camps and recreation programs this year has been complex and unprecedented due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I've been with the department over 26 years, I think, at this point, and I've never had to take on a challenge such as large as what we've been trying to roll out and successfully rolled it out starting this past Monday. Historically, camp staff start working on camp preparation in December. This year, the entire process had to be restarted in the middle of May, almost 1 month after the county and the state issued their stay-at-home order. One of the key components in any summer is to make sure that we're providing for camp and participant safety. And this year we wanted to make sure that that was precedent and paramount. To achieve this, staff reviewed county health officer orders on a regular basis. We worked and consulted with our city attorney's office and the Santa Barbara County Public Health Task Office to ask questions, introduce considerations to operate camps and programs this summer. And then with the most recent health order that was issued on June 12th, it paved the way for us to move forward with offering our camp programs for this summer. At the same time that we were reviewing all these county health officer orders and all of this other information that was available to the department, staff were reviewing and gathering industry guidelines. We were looking at the American Camping Association, CDC, the Center for Disease Control, the YMCA of USA, City of San Francisco, City of Newport Beach, and other youth serving agencies to make sure that we were gathering as much information as possible to help us navigate our procedures and guidelines as we move forward. Once we had all that information, our youth activities supervisor, Adam Porte, really took the lead and developed all the internal policies and procedures and guidelines, and that's the work effort that's included in your report tonight as an attachment. Lastly, what we wanted to do was make sure that we were able to communicate to parents, staff, and internally inside the city organization, how we were going to operate programs this summer to make sure that safety was paramount. And so we were able to link these guidelines and policies to our website. They were sent to all parents 2 weeks prior to registration. There's something that the staff continue to use as a tool. They're available at every campsite. And it's really our kind of methodology for as we approach summer and move forward. Next slide, please. So developing policies and guidelines are crucial, but the logistics and putting into action are entirely a different task. If you recall, and it's come up earlier tonight, in March, we released over 200 hourly employees. 90% of those hourly employees were operating in the recreation division to operate after-school programs, with many transitioning into the summer season. Typically, the department increases the number of employees between fall or spring summer programming up to about 300 hourly employees. So about an additional 120 hourly employees are brought on every year just to deliver summer programs. And as summer programs and activities slowly became a reality, we started to hire back these staff. In addition to reviewing certifications and completing mandatory training, all were required to receive additional training specifically related to COVID-19, and then develop new camp curriculum to ensure staff and participant safety. Everything from drop-off to pickup needed to change, and that included the implementation of contactless drop-off and pickup at staged times or locations to reduce the interaction with parents and staff. So families dropping off youth at the beach volleyball courts, there was 3 separate drop-off locations, the same at East Beach for the junior lifeguard program. Nature Camp followed a similar model. Staff signed in children as they were dropped off. The parent did not need to actually get out of the car and even come into contact with a pen. In addition to that, as it related to staff safety and participant safety, we relied a lot on parents to keep staff up to date and really not send their child to camp if they were not well. Report that to the camp. As children are dropped off, we do conduct a COVID-19 screening. It's a visual check where we're looking for signs and symptoms. If symptoms and signs appear, we are prepared to provide a temperature check with full personal protective equipment at a private location at the camp setting as needed. And we have notification procedures for positive cases that are all contained in the guidelines that you have in front of you. To develop social distancing strategies, we were extremely creative with this. I'm proud of how we accomplished this. We went with smaller groups or pods. I use the word interchangeably as we go through tonight. We have no more than 10 participants per instructor. So we have a pod of 11, in some cases 12, with a junior counselor to assist with just moving kids around. Participants are required to remain in their pod for the entire camp and then the entire session. In some cases, this created the need to increase the staff to camper ratio. For example, in junior lifeguards and beach volleyball camp, historically, we have a 20-to-1 ratio based on the type of activity or the prerequisite swim test. But moving into a pod situation like we're doing this summer, it became a need to hire on additional staff to make sure we could provide for that safety. So currently, just to give you a sense of how that plays out, the beach volleyball camp currently has 10 pods of 10 children on 10 volleyball courts. The junior lifeguard program is running 16 pods of 10, both within a morning and afternoon session. Our nature camp program is running 7 pods of 10, and it just goes on and on like that. The decision to explore new locations also became something paramount that we needed to review. We wanted to make sure we could limit the amount of travel, the number of activities and excursions. Nature camp that's traditionally being located up at Mackenzie Park and Schofield area were relocated down to Chase Pond Park. They now take up the entire expansion area. We use the Casa Las Palmas, the Great Meadow. We use the Carousel House. We're using the Sunken Garden by the Carousel House. And we're also using this grass area and the beaches in the immediately adjacent area. And that was done so that we could bring all of our activities down to a centralized area and keep certain pods at a minimum of 2 pods in close area to allow for better staff oversight and supervision. Every program that we're offering this summer, other than Hart's horse riding, Lego, the virtual online programs, everything's in the waterfront. So we're pretty much between East Beach volleyball courts and Ledbetter. That includes our skate camp and our beach boogie and surf camp at Ledbetter as well. So we have 600 youth in the waterfront every single day participating in parks and recreation programs safely in individual pods. In addition to that, when we have kids dropped off, they report directly to their specific pod. They do not interact with other staff or other camp participants, and staff have been extremely creative with this at Nature Camp, and you'll see an image of this later in the presentation. They used hula hoops. So as kids were getting dropped off at Casa Las Palmas, they reported to a hula hoop. That was their kind of area to stage. All the hula hoops were 6 feet apart at minimum distance. And then when the camp activity started, that whole pod got up and then got introduced to the day's activities. So we really tried to be as creative as we possibly could. In addition to all of that, we needed to make sure that in addition to the social distancing, we were able to meet the mask and hygiene requirements. And kudos to Summer's Case, our marketing coordinator. She developed neck gaiters that were branded with Parks and Recreation logos. If you haven't driven by the waterfront, all camp kids were issued a bright lime green Parks and Rec gaiter that also serves for sun protection and a mask and meets the requirements. The junior lifeguard program was issued red gaiters along with to match their typical uniform. And those will be continued to be handed out all summer when kids are not actively involved in recreation activities that require exercise so that they can breathe and they're not restricted. In addition to that, we brought on additional lockable portable restrooms that were located in various camp activities or camp locations. This was done so that only camp staff and participants would have access to a restroom that wasn't a typical open park restroom for all the public that are using our beaches and parks in the waterfront at this time. And then we brought on additional sanitizing equipment to make sure that things were cleaned throughout the day. And at the end of the day, before we reset, there was no equipment to be shared outside of the group or pod. And so that whole process gets reset every night. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the kids do not change pods, so they just report day in, day out to the same group. Some of the other considerations that we took into account were all travel camps were canceled. Primarily, we use 15 passenger vehicles to move our kids around this summer, whether it's nature camp or aqua camp using the big bus. The occupancy in the vehicles did not provide us to move kids while trying to maintain the 6 feet social distancing. So we canceled a lot of our travel camps this summer, or camps that required a lot of transportation. In doing that, we have kept some field excursions and trips in nature camp where the kids will do 2 trips a day or 2 trips over the entire course of their session. The vehicles are cleaned every night and reset for the pod uses the vehicles for their trip the following day. And then lastly, we had to account for environmental factors such as red flag warnings, which is another reason we came down out of the high fire zone at Schofield Park. Trying to relocate kids in a really timely manner using vehicles did not seem safe to us. We needed to account for June gloom or high heat periods during the summer. All of those things seem to be situations that we navigate each year, but given the parameters of providing the social distancing and keeping kids separate and all of the other components associated with running a high functional camp with safety requirements, we just felt we had to relocate camps and address those situations. Next slide, please. So just a quick show of some of the things that we've put into place. I've referenced the guidelines for summer programming in response to COVID-19. That's included in your packet. It can also be found on our website. And there's images of the two gators that are out being used through all of our camp programs this summer. Youth can certainly bring their own masks with them. We encourage that. But we did want to provide something to the camp participants just as a way to recognize their commitment to participating in a camp this summer under COVID-19. Next slide, please. So just showing you some pictures. We still do push-ups and junior lifeguards. We just, instead of having 200 kids all doing it at the same time, probably no further than 2 feet apart. This is a pod doing their push-ups or attempting to do their push-ups, practicing social distancing. And then the picture on the right, you can see where we've got kids, and it's probably a cold morning because they don't look that happy, but they were much happier than the picture shows, kind of waiting in their hula hoop, waiting for the camp activities to start. And then our staff demonstrating how we use the gators to provide for, in this case, overcast conditions and mask considerations. Next slide, please. So just to talk a little briefly about the camps and activities we're running this summer, we're offering 11 in-person camps and 2 virtual camps this summer. What has traditionally been 1-week camps remain 1-week camps. Junior lifeguards, which is traditionally a 7-week program, has been broken into 8 sessions, 4 morning sessions and 4 afternoon sessions of 2-week periods that run all summer. Nature camp, we're running 4 sessions, and then so on throughout this report. You can see the capacity that we are able to serve and the number of registrations we have, and then a status in terms of where we're open, full, or mostly full. The wait list I wanted to highlight briefly. It's a little misleading. There's such a demand for parents to have their kids in camps this summer, and we're one of a very few select agencies locally that's currently running programs. So most families sign their kid up for every single wait list that's possible or multiple kids. And typically when they're added to a camp session, the numbers reduce quite significantly in the wait list. So of the 818 folks that are on the wait list, a family that has 2 children may have be on the wait list 10 times for a specific activity based on their need to find some sort of childcare activity for their kids this summer. Next slide, please. So what does this mean? So we would typically, as I mentioned earlier, do this presentation in the fall. So last year, after the end of summer, we had offered 37 camps and 176 or more sessions. That's over 4,000 registrations and a little over $782,000 in revenue. This summer, we're offering 13 camps with 75 sessions. And I will tell you, we're maxed. We are using every single employee we can. In addition to this, we also have our tennis courts up and operational in our swimming pool and our beaches with our lifeguards. So we're running at full operational speed right now. And you can see we're serving maybe slightly over half of what we did for all of 2019. I addressed the waitlist situation earlier in the presentation, and the revenue is coming in slightly over 50% of what we would typically make in the summer. Next slide, please. I also wanted to just highlight, as we were heading into this presentation, we wanted to make the public and the commission aware of other agencies that are getting ready to start up and start operating programs that may meet the need that we are unable to provide this summer. So we've listed primarily Boys and Girls Clubs, the Girls Inc., Wilderness Youth Santa Barbara, YMCA, Police Activities League, what their plan is in terms of a start date, what their hours of operation will be, the ages, and then if financial assistance is available. As you heard during our budget presentation, one of the challenges for us moving into fiscal year 21 was our heavily subsidized programs. When you lay over or overlay the logistical challenges of running large programs to meet a number of needs in the community, it can make the logistics extremely difficult. And so those two decisions combined meant that we were no longer able to offer summer fun this year. But we're hoping that these other agencies can step up and provide these opportunities for youth in the community. And then right before this presentation, I heard that Carpinteria is going to open up their junior lifeguard program on July 6th. That'll be the only other program that's operating between the state program at Refugio all the way down to Wainimi. So we have kids in our program that have traditionally participated at UCSB, the Hendry's program operated by the county. We also have a significant amount of youth water polo players back in because Old Club water polo is suspended right now. There's no access to pools. So we're completely at max capacity for a lot of our activities and camps, specifically junior lifeguards and nature camp and skate camp. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation. This is how to find us. And definitely we encourage people to go there. If you are still looking to be in a camp, even if it's at full capacity, we encourage you to get on the wait list. As we are able to bring on more staff or find more resources for the camps that we are offering, we'll continue to open up spaces and take children off the wait list in the order that they're on there. And hopefully, you know, the county can continue to see the recent uptick in cases reduce back to a number where they feel safe and the department feels safe to look at programs like junior lifeguards or beach volleyball, adding more than 10 kids in a pod, which would significantly help us address the waitlist issue and the needs in this community. And with that, I'd be willing to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. I think what you guys have done this department is miraculous. The opportunities that you provided children that wouldn't have those this summer is just invaluable. Commissioner Longstreet.
Thank you. Just thank you to you, to your staff. This is unprecedented. And I think, to me, it's about the mental health of our kids too. The fact that they get out and they're active. It's the parents that are trying to go back to work. And then to look at, you know, the pages of what you gave us and what you dealt with and how professionally you've dealt with it. I hope that all of our city council people watch this presentation because I think it really brings home what the nuts and bolts are to operating in this environment and what we may look to the future and have to decide how we're supporting our families. So I can't say enough thank yous.
Thanks.
Vice Chair Miguel.
Well, this is just going to be a giant ditto. It's the easiest thing in the world would have been to put this in the too hard bucket. And the fact that you've been able to serve so many people this summer is actually nothing short of miraculous. And yeah, I think this presentation should be required viewing for City Council because I'm still not 100% sure. Parks and Rec got great support, but the impact of the revenue loss, I'm not sure was how well that's truly understood, and certainly the amount of work and dedication it's taken, I'm sure hasn't been fully appreciated because I don't know how you could fully appreciate it without sitting through this and really trying to absorb it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I had a conversation with my son last night when I was bringing him home from the skate park, and I was commenting on how people seem to be out and about, and I'm a little bit concerned being a nurse and watching my situation at the hospital change on a weekly basis. It's frightening. And my son was saying that people, like for their mental health, like his peers, his preteen and teen peers, they were getting lonely and depressed and isolated, and they just couldn't take it anymore. And that's the worst of a child. So I think, you know, reflecting what Commissioner Longstreet and Vice Chair Miguel have said is the park services and the funding spent for those recreation programs are invaluable to the mental health of our community. And I think right now we need that help more than any other time I've seen in my lifespan. So just again, thank you so much for taking on the multiple roles. Every one of you has taken on multiple roles to make up for the lack of staff. And you've risen above and beyond, and you've provided services that this community would not have without you. So on behalf of my children and all their friends, just a huge giant thank you.
Chair Clark and commissioners, again, it's really a team effort, and I can't stress enough how proud I am. And I typically don't sleep well in summer under the best of circumstances, given all of the programs and moving parts that we have. But every day I get to work under these new challenging conditions, and staff are ready to go. They're positive, they're upbeat, they're handling things on the fly, and they're making really, really intelligent decisions. And again, I just can't speak to all the support we've received throughout the department, and really Jill Zachary, the director's leadership to, you know, not allow us to just put it in the too hard bucket, and how staff rose up and accepted the challenge to deliver these programs. So I'll make sure that our staff receive this presentation if they're not watching at home or at their computers right now, and that your comments are passed on to them, because they're really doing the lion's share of the work. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Please pass it on to them. Does anybody have any more comments? If we don't, I believe that we're going to adjourn right here. Until next time.